दिव्य ज्ञानी दे प्रकाशित दिव्य ज्ञानी दे प्रकाशित प्रेम भक्तिया होते अविद्या विनाशयते Bhaktiya hote avidya vinashayate Vedegaya hara charita Vedegaya hara charita Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu Sri Guru Karuna Sindhu Adama Janara Bandhu Lokanath Lokera Jivana Nath Lokera Jivana Prabhu kara daya de hamare pada jaya Prabhu kara daya de hamare pada jaya ISKCON Bhuvana ISKCON Bhuvana Prabhupada Prabhupada Jaya Prabhupada Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada. A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahamsa Paraguracharya Astatara Satashi Srimad His Divine Grace Srila Bhaktivedanta Saraswati Thakur Ki Jai Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Prem Se Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasari Gaur Bhaktivinoda Ki Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinath Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Shri Vrindavan Dham Ki Shri Mayapur Dham Ki Ganga Mai Ki Yamuna Mai Ki Bhakti Devi Ki Tulsi Devi Ki Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shri Shri Guru Shri Gauranga. All glories to Srila Prabhupada.
Damodar, I offer my humble obeisances. Seeing his mother's whipping stick, he cried and rubbed his eyes again and again with his two gloved hands. His eyes were fearful and his breathing quick, and as Mother Yashoda bound his belly with ropes, he shivered in fright and his pearl necklace shook. To the Supreme Lord Sri Damodar, who is bound in his devotee's love, I offer my humble obeisances. Those super excellent pastimes of Lord Krishna's babyhood drowned the inhabitants of Gokula in pools of ecstasy. To the devotees who are attracted only to his majestic aspect of Narayan and Vaikuntha, the Lord here reveals, I am conquered and overwhelmed by pure loving devotion. To the Supreme Lord Damodar, my obeisances hundreds and hundreds of times. O Lord, although you are able to do all kinds of benedictions, I do not pray to you for liberation, nor eternal life in Vaikuntha, nor any other boon. My only prayer is that your childhood pastimes may able to be enacted. O Lord, I do not even want to know your future of karma. I simply wish that your childhood pastimes may ever be enacted in my heart. O Lord, the chiefs of your lavish lotus face, which is encircled by locks of curling hair, have become better than ever beautiful among your lotus kisses. What more can I describe than this? Millions of opulences are no use to me, but make this vision constantly remain in my mind. O omnipotent, O Master, O Lord, be pleased upon me. I am drowning in an ocean of sorrow, and am almost like a dead man. Please shower your rain of mercy on me, uplifting me and protecting me from the burning vision. O Lord Damodar, in your form as a baby, they showed a bound to grind your stone with the rope of tying the house. You then freed the sons of the bear, Mandir and Alachua, who were cursed to stand the streets, and you gave them the chance to become your devotees. Please bless me in the same way. I have no desire for liberation into the homeless. O Lord, the entire universe was created by Lord Brahma, who was born from your abdomen, which was bound in the rope of Mother Yashoda. To this rope I offer my humble obeisances. I offer my obeisances to those devoted Srimati Radharani and to the limited pastimes.
Just check in.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Bhaktivedanta Academy, for leading the Kirtan this morning. Future leaders of ISKCON, Ki Jai. Hurry up and grow up. Okay, I'm going to read a little Prabhupada nectar while you're sitting down. Some of Prabhupada's disciples were in the midst of famous or infamous careers just before they joined him to take up full-time spiritual life. Jagatarini Devi Dasi had been a leading movie actress in Australia and had just made a film with Mick Jagger before deciding to surrender to Srila Prabhupada. One time, while Prabhupada was visiting in Australia, a reporter picked up on the story that the former actress had now become a renounced devotee. They ran 2 pictures in the newspaper showing Jagatarini first as a movie actress with makeup and fashionable attire, and then in a sari washing a pot. When the newspaper came out, the devotees were amused and wanted to bring it to Prabhupada, although Jagatarini was frightened that he would be displeased. When Prabhupada saw the photos, he laughed. In this picture, as a movie actress, she looks morose and she is not very beautiful, said Prabhupada. Then he pointed to the picture of his disciple in a sari. But in this picture, she looks very lively and very beautiful. But to the materialist, he will see it the other way. That evening in the temple, when Jagatarini approached Prabhupada's Vyasa-san to receive a piece of prasadam, he said to her, "You are very fortunate because Krishna saved you from all that nonsense." Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. So let me first tell you who has been sponsoring the ghee lights for the last few days, because I kind of missed it on the weekend. So on Saturday, Sachinandan and Rupa Prabhu sponsored the ghee lights. On Sunday, Nandini Kishori and Rasa Leela sponsored for Gauranga Kishore, her son. And Vrindavan Leela sponsored, and Shoshank and Kavya sponsored. So thank you very much to them. And today is Tuesday, and Astasaki Devi Dasi sponsored the ghee lights today in honor of her children, and Pran Govinda Prabhu also sponsored the ghee lights today. So please give your blessings to these nice devotees for the service. So I just want to mention that tonight in the temple room, 7 p.m., is Damodar Leela Katha, as followed by Gopi Geet chanting, so that's Pran Govinda speaks, and then Keshava Prabhu will lead the Gopi Gita chanting. That's this evening at 7. Thursday evening at 7, Govinda Dasi is going to lead a talk on questions and answers about Srila Prabhupada. Everyone is welcome to attend. You can also hear online, and we'll record it as well. And I want to mention that a devotee, what's his name again? Priyavrata? Priyavrata Prabhu. He was visiting last weekend, and he left his green bead bag. It has Chinese counter beads on it. If anyone happens to see that, picked it up by mistake, Kayapani has it. Bada boom, bada bing. There you go. Anyway, he will be eternally grateful to you. Those are his special beads. Okay, I also want to mention the newsletter came out today. This is a good way to find out what's happening in the temple. I know a lot of people don't hear announcements, so if you get the newsletter, you can find out. But a lot of people have unsubscribed to the newsletter, which is fine if you intentionally unsubscribe. But if you unintentionally don't get it and you want it, call the temple office and we'll tell you how to put it back into your email feed. And I know who has unsubscribed, in case who doesn't want to get our news. Okay, these are the devotees who assisted their spiritual master addressing the deities today. Shishi Radha Sham Sundar Akuti Prabhu, Chota Radha Sham Sundar Madhuri Gopi Prabhu, Shri Krishna Balaram Astasaki Prabhu, Chota Krishna Balaram Govinda Mohini Prabhu, Sri Gaurnitai Guru Prasad Prabhu, Chota Gaurnitai Leela Prabhu, Gurus and Lord Nrsingadev Ram Narayan Prabhu, and Shesha Prabhu is giving class today.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, just turn that way. Yeah, that's fine. Thank you. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jai Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tiravana Chari Jamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yashoda Nandana Vraja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tiravana Chari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Vallabha Girivardhari Jam Vishnupad Paramahamsa Prabhujakacharya Stotra Satya Shishimad. His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki. Ananta Gauta Vaishnavinda Ki. ISKCON Founder Charles Divine Grace Srila Prabhupada Ki. Gaur Premanandi. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to Shishi Guru and Gauranga. Nama Om Vishnu Bharaya Krishna Parashtaya Bhutara Srimate Bhakti Vedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Bacharane Nirvishesha Sunnivari Paschachire Sada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Hare Krishna. So this morning we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, 10th Canto, chapter 53. This is about Krishna kidnapping Rukmini. In Los Angeles, we have our deities, Rukmini Dwarkadish. So we also worship Rukmini Devi. And this is a very nice story about her marriage. So you prepared to chant which verse? 10 is all right? You didn't get a chance to practice? Okay, no problem. We'll just do text 10. So the word meanings: Pitrin, the forefathers; Devan, the demigods; Samabhyarcha, correctly worshipping; Vipran, the brahmanas; Cha, and Vidivat, according to prescribed rituals; Nirpa, O king, Parikshit; Bhojayitva, feeding them; Yatha, as; Nyainam is just; Vachayam asa, he had chanted; Mangalam, auspicious mantras. Pitrin Devan Samabhyajya, Viprans cha Virivan Nirpa, Bhojayitva yatha nyayam, Vachayam asamangalam. Pitrin Devan Samabhyarcha, Viprams cha Virivan Nirpa, Bhojayitva yatha nyayam, Vachayam asamangalam. Pitrin Devan Samabhyacha, Viprans cha Virivan Nirpa, Bhojayitva yatha nyayam, Vachayam asamangalam. Ladies? Gurukul?
Devan
Okay, so I'll read the translation, and because we have several verses we're going to go through, and we can chant them together, 11 through 17, and we'll chant the Sanskrit, then we'll read the English, then we'll chant the Sanskrit, then we'll read the English like that. So this is text 10, translation. O king, in accordance with prescribed rituals, Maharaj Bhishmaka worshipped the forefathers, demigods, and brahmanas, feeding them all properly. Then he had the traditional mantras chanted for the well-being of the bride. So text number 11. Susnatam sudatim tanya krita kotaka mangalam ahatam ina. The bride cleaned her teeth and bathed, after which she put on the auspicious wedding necklace. Then she was dressed in brand new upper and lower garments and adorned with most excellent jeweled ornaments. Purport, according to Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti, only spotless clothing fresh off the loom should be worn during auspicious ceremonies. So text number 12. Chakrur samagre nachai vadavachiyotama purohit. The best of the brahmanas chanted mantras of the Rig, Sama, and Yajur Veda for the bride's protection, and the priest learned in the Atharva Veda offered oblations to pacify the controlling planets. Purport, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti points out that the Atharva Veda often deals with the pacification of unfavorable planets. Text number 13. Hiranya Rupaiva Samsi Translation, outstanding in his knowledge of regulative principles, the king rewarded the brahmanas with gold, silver, clothing, cows, and sesame seeds mixed with raw sugar. Text number 14. Evam Chedi Pati Raja Nagosha Sutaya Va. Translation, Raja Damagosha, Lord of Chedi, had also engaged brahmanas expert in chanting mantras to perform all rituals necessary to assure his son's prosperity. Text 15. Mara Chudbir Gajan Dai Pai. Translation, King Damagosha traveled to Kundina, accompanied by armies of elephants exuding mudda, chariots hung with gold chains, and numerous cavalry and infantry soldiers. Text number 16. Tam vai vidabha pati. Translation, Bhishmaka, the lord of Vidarbha, came out of the city and met King Damagosha, offering him tokens of respect. Bhishmaka then settled Damagosha in a residence especially constructed for the occasion. Finally, text number 17. Atra salvo jana sando indakaro. Translation, Shishupal's supporters Salva, Jarasandha, Dantavakra, and Vidurata all came along with Pondraka and thousands of other kings. Purport: those familiar with the history of Lord Krishna's life will immediately recognize the names given in this text. The kings mentioned here maintained a deep animosity towards Sri Krishna and opposed him in one way or another. But they were all to be frustrated and defeated on the occasion of Shishupal's would-be wedding. Om Jnana Timirandasya Gananjana Shalakaya Chakshuranmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So very many interesting and useful lessons for young and old in these verses of Srimad Bhagavatam. So we'll try to mention a few of them, along with describing a little bit about the people that are mentioned here, because we have several kings mentioned, and it's good to know a little bit about them. We'll start with Bhishmaka. Bhishmaka was who? Any children can say, who was Bhishmaka? Does anybody know? Okay, Rukmini's father, right. Bhishmaka was the father of the bride here. And so the father of the bride was making all kinds of arrangements for his daughter's wedding. But as we heard yesterday, he really wasn't so much anxious to have his daughter marry Shishupal. But his son, Rukmi, he was very much interested in that, and he made all the arrangements, and so Bhishmaka was going along with his son in this regard. So who is Bhishmaka? Well, he was a friend of Bhishma Dev, grandfather Bhishma of the Pandavas. He was a friend with him. Bhishmaka was one of his friends. And just to give you some idea about how powerful a king he was, it's described in the Mahabharata that he ruled 1/4 of the entire world. 1/4 of the entire world was Bhishmaka's kingdom. So his daughter, Rukmini, was a real prize for that prince or king that got to marry her. Another little interesting fact about Bhishmaka is that when Maharaj Yudhisthira was going to do the Ashvamedha Yajna, you have to send a challenge horse around to make sure that everyone agrees to you being able to do the yajna, and no one can register any objection. And so apparently Bhishmaka, he registered an objection when the challenge horse came, and Sahadev, one of the Pandava brothers, he defeated him. And so therefore Bhishmaka couldn't prevent Yudhisthira from performing the Ashvamedha Yajna. Still, he is a very powerful king, but these verses indicate something interesting about him. In text number 13, it describes Bhishmaka as Raja Vidi Vidam Vara. Raja Vidi Vidam Vara. The best of those who know religious principles. So religious principles means knowing what to do, when to do it, and what not to do, and why one shouldn't do it. Simple definition of religious principles. Now, I'm sure some of the children at home have different rules in the house, like you have to go to bed at a certain time, you're not supposed to do this, you are supposed to do that. And so you have to follow rules and regulations. And sometimes we think, well, at least I know my own kids used to say to me, well, how come you don't have to go to bed at a certain period of time? I have to go to bed. Well, everyone, you'll be happy to know, children, that everyone has to follow rules and regulations. And even Bhishmaka, Maharaj Bhishmaka, who was ruled 1/4 of the whole world, he also had to follow rules and regulations. And so no one is free from that. So I guess you can all get used to it, whether it's going to bed at a certain time now or it's doing different duties later in life. That's the part of the Vedic culture that we live in, which is a culture that is meant to ensure mangalam. This word mangalam is used in text number 10 as well as in text number 11. And mangalam means what is auspicious or what brings good fortune. And actually, following religious principles or rules and regulations brings good fortune. And that's why we do them. We do them to please Krishna, and thus we get good fortune in our lives. And so there's no need to worry about having to follow rules and regulations because they're mangalam. Now, why would Maharaj Bhishmaka want his daughter's wedding to be mangalam? He wanted to be mangalam because it means that good things will be there in the future. But we can't always assure things are mangalam just by ourselves, by our own endeavor. And therefore we find in descriptions here of Bhishmaka worshiping the forefathers and the demigods and the brahmanas, making sure they all had prasadam, doing all these things because auspiciousness or what is good fortune for us is not always the result of our own endeavor, but rather the result of the blessings of others. Just like if you go to bed on time, you get the blessings of your parents are happy, and you get the blessings of your teachers too, because when they come to school the next day, you're not so tired or ill-behaved. So we need the blessings of those older, more wise, or superior persons to help create auspiciousness in our lives. And this is actually kind of a different way of looking at the world than we generally find in society today. People don't accept this idea that we need assistance beyond our own means to ensure success in any endeavor or to ensure auspiciousness. And as a result, we see so many bad things happening in the world today. So many unfortunate things happening because people have forgotten superior personalities who are there to help them, such as Krishna or God. Krishna is there to help us in our lives, and we are meant to accept that help in various ways, all of which mean accepting the blessings that He's prepared to give us. So that's a little bit about Bhishmaka and why he worshipped the Brahmins. Another very interesting lesson to be learned here is described in text number 12, where it talks about the controlling planets of the universe, influences. In purport says, Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti points out that the Atharva Veda often deals with the pacification of unfavorable planets. Here in the temple property in the back there, we're establishing a eco farm. An eco farm is there. And an eco farm means trying to look at all the different influences, natural influences in a situation, and to include them in a plan to go forward, or to grow crops, or to tend cows. And it's interesting to note that the whole ecology movement really only started about in the 60s maybe. And until then, there wasn't general knowledge in society that all these things are related. That what you do to the water is going to have some effect on your health. Or whether you pollute the air, how it's going to cause different problems with the rainforests. And so this idea of connectivity wasn't there. But this verse, which talks about pacifying unfavorable planets, takes ecology to a higher level. Because it says that not just influences in this world, but even influences from other planets affect ecology, affect how we live our lives, how our food is grown, how people's minds are calm and not agitated. So again, a different worldview, a more expanded worldview is there in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam, as it includes even the influences of other planets on how we live our lives. So these are some of the lessons that we learn just from this simple preparation for the wedding that's being made. Another point that's made here is that how Rukmini was dressed in clean cloth, clean new cloth. That's a way of bringing auspiciousness. So what lesson can we learn from this? Well, when we come to the temple and present ourselves before the deity, we should try to, as much as possible, be clean. Come with clean cloth, clean mind, and present ourselves humbly before the Lord. Srila Prabhupada gave the example of this himself. When he was traveling, his servants report that just before the plane would land, Prabhupada would do what? Who knows what he would do just before the plane landed? Dilanda? Right, he'd go to the bathroom. He'd straighten himself up, get himself nice and neat, and put fresh tilak on. Because it's auspicious. It's auspicious, and it's a Vaishnava always wants to take advantage of appearing neat and clean to impress Krishna, first of all, and everyone else as well. So we can take this lesson from Rukmini's dress as part of this wedding preparation, to always appear before the deity clean, neat, and fresh with nice tilak. Okay. Now, there's also a lesson here about how Bhishmaka greeted King Dhamaghosh. It says, Bhishmaka, the lord of Vidarbha, came out of the city and met King Dhamaghosh, offering him tokens of respect. So, now I understand that over the last week or so, there's been 3 new students that have joined the Bhaktivedanta Academy. I think they're all in the lowest. What's the lowest class? Which Bhavan is it? Bhakti Bhavan. So I think there are 3 new students there, maybe 2 boys and 1 girl. And they've joined. And as older students, you may not have that much chance to interact with these new students because they're in the youngest Bhavan. But as older students, you have a duty, a responsibility. Just like Bhishmaka went and greeted a guest, you should also, each one of you, take the time, if you have the opportunity to meet these new students, to greet them on behalf of the school, wish them well in their endeavors in the school, and offer any kind of help that you can to them. Anytime anyone goes someplace new, it's always a little bewildering. And if you, the older students of the academy, take it upon yourself to extend yourself to them, that lesson of offering respect is one that we can also learn from the behavior of King Bhishmaka here in the pages of Srimad Bhagavatam. So don't neglect, just think how you'd feel if someone came and said to you, "Oh, welcome to the school, is there anything I can do for you? I hope everything goes well for you." You'd feel, oh, it's so nice, you'd feel welcomed and encouraged in the new environment. So try to give that to the students as well. That's my request of all of you older students today. Okay, so we focus a lot on this side of the room with the younger students, so now I don't want to neglect all of you on this side of the room. So the last verse that we have today presents a rogues gallery of people that didn't like Krishna. So I want to talk a little bit about them, just so you get some benefit from sitting here, although we can all benefit from the instruction. But here's the rogues gallery. Shishupal. I'm going to read a little bit about the birth of Shishupal. It's not very auspicious. Shishupal was the son of King Damagosha. By his wife Shrutashravas. He was born with 3 eyes and 4 hands. And at the time of his birth, he brayed like an ass. So his parents decided to abandon the ugly and awkward child. Immediately, a ghost appeared and told the father that the child would grow up to become very strong and powerful, and that only one person would be able to kill him, and that person was already born on earth. Further questioned by Shishupal's mother, the ghost said that as soon as the son saw the person born to kill him, he would lose his 3rd eye, and that if he was seated on the lap of the person, 2 of his 4 hands would be lost. After having said this, the ghost disappeared. News of this peculiar child spread far and wide, and many kings visited him. Damagosha placed the child on the lap of each of them, but no physical change occurred in him. Then one day, Sri Krishna and Balabhadra came to see the child, whose mother, Shrutishravas, was the sister of Krishna's father. So Shishupal was what relation to Krishna? Cousin, yes, he was his cousin. So Krishna's aunt, Shrutishravas, placed the child on Krishna's lap. Immediately 2 hands and the 3rd eye of the child vanished, and with tears in her eyes, the mother prayed to Krishna never to kill Shishupal, and Krishna promised that he would forgive the crimes of Shishupal 100 times. So we know that later Krishna did kill Shishupal after he passed his limit of curses. Now apparently Shishupal liked to go to weddings also, because it says here he was present at the wedding of Draupadi, and he was also present at the wedding of the daughter of the king of Kalinga, and then he was present at Rukmini's would-be wedding. So he liked to go. That was his would-be wedding as well, I guess. But he liked to go to weddings, Shishupal. Okay, that's a little bit about Shishupal. Jarasandha, another inauspicious birth. Jarasandha was born in 2 halves. He was born in 2 halves. It was like 1 half of a body and then another half of a body. When his parents saw this, they again sort of abandoned him. They just threw the two halves into the woods someplace, into the forest someplace. But in the forest there was Jara. Jara was a witch. And so Jara joined the two halves of the baby together. And that's how the baby got his name, Jara Sanda. Sanda means to bring together, come together, and Jara was her name. So Jara Sanda, that was his inauspicious birth. His death was auspicious in that he was killed by a devotee, Bhima. Krishna, Arjuna, and Bhima went to Jarasanda's kingdom, and Arjuna and Bhima begged. They came as Brahmins and they asked Jarasandha if they could fight with him. Jarasandha refused to fight with Arjuna, but agreed to fight with Bhima, and they fought for a long time. But then who knows what happened? What happened? Yeah. Right, no one was winning back and forth. And so then what happened at that point? Yeah.
Krishna made a sign to Bhima how to kill him.
Right. Krishna, he gave some hint, some signal, like tear him like I think he picked up a blade of grass or something and bifurcated it like that. He tore him asunder. Right. So he tore him in half, and then Jarasandha was killed. Okay, some more of these rogues here. Salva. We'll be reading about Salva in a few chapters here. He had a wonderful airplane. This airplane was given to him by Lord Shiva. Because you see, after this fight that's going to take place in a few verses here, Krishna is going to defeat all of these rogues gallery kings. And when that happened, Salva was so upset that he took a vow that he was going to kill Krishna. And so he worshipped Lord Shiva for a wonderful airplane. This airplane could fly unimaginably fast. And sometimes it appeared in the sky, and sometimes it disappeared in the sky. And sometimes it looked like it was many airplanes, and sometimes it looked like it was one airplane. A very amazing craft that he got from his worship of Lord Shiva. And so he came to Dwarka and was harassing the city in his desire to kill Krishna. And so finally Krishna and Salva came to personal blows with each other, and Salva was actually able to knock Krishna's bow from his hand. And when the demigods saw this, they became worried, but no need to worry. Krishna regained the upper hand soon. But then what Salva did was he created a false Vasudeva, Krishna's father, and he brought him before Krishna. That's right, and that's exactly what he did. He brought this false Vasudeva there, and he cut off his head to discourage Krishna. And Krishna, in his Leela of fighting, became a little taken aback by this, but soon regained again the upper hand, and he killed Salva. Dantavakra and Vidurata. Does anybody know how Dantavakra and Vidurata are related? Anybody know? Yes. Well, Dantavakra was Vijay, yes. But Vidurata was not Jai. Who was Jai in the birth of Dantavakra and Shishupal? Right. And so, but you're right in one sense in that Vidurata was the brother of Dantavakra. He was the brother of Dantavakra. Now, when Krishna killed Dantavakra, that was the last of his 3 births, of Vijay's 3 births in this world, and he went back to Vaikuntha when he was killed by Krishna. Pondraka, the last that we'll discuss today, a rather humorous character. He sent a letter to Krishna, and messenger actually, and he challenged him, you're the false Vasudeva, I'm the real Vasudeva, and I demand that you immediately give up your false carrying, the club, lotus, chakra, and conch. He demanded this, and this was by letter, by messenger, an assembly of Krishna. And when all of the devotees there and Krishna heard this, they broke out in uncontrollable laughter. They thought it was just so funny that this Pondraka was saying like that. And so Krishna said, yes, I will give up my chakra, but be careful to make sure you can handle it. And so Krishna went and he killed Pondraka, who appeared on the battlefield with obviously like fake 4 hands, He had his regular arms and these obviously, fake arms. I remember the first time I read that, it was so hilarious. I was thinking about it on Sankirtan all day long. This false Pondraka was there. I was in Annapolis, Maryland, by the way. Even remember the place. So Dantavakra and Vidudrata are there. So these are some of the rogues galleries that showed up at the wedding of Sisupal to Rukmini, and how Krishna kidnapped Rukmini. So are there any questions or comments anyone has on these subjects? Yes? Yes?
How the parents were just going to abandon him. It sounds like terrible, It sounds like neglect, criminal almost. But it must be in that society just like a higher. Can you explain that, like a higher standing or something?
Yeah, the question is that it seems neglectful of the parent to abandon the child. I think Sisupal being the main example here, just because he had, third eye and 2 extra hands and things. Jarasanda's birth was also abandoned. So, I don't know that I can offer a real explanation of that, although there are a number of things that came to my mind that made me hesitant even to read that, and so it's good that you bring it up, because obviously we don't want to encourage neglect just because there happens to be some defect in a child. The child didn't say that he died at birth or something like that. So I think in this particular case, Sisupal wasn't abandoned because they got the message that this is how things will be normalized, and so therefore they called so many kings to come, and they came and they placed the child on the lap and everything like that in an attempt to sort of cure the ills, so to speak. And so and we have that balance there. Jarasandha, I don't know the situation of life of the 2 halves, whether they were lifeless halves and then joined together and life came. I don't know the situation there.
But when the witch held them together, they just joined and became a full person. In the Vedic system, it's stated that if a child shows inauspicious signs and so, when Doridhan was born, they also they told Rasta to abandon this child. He prayed like assault, and I don't know about the pastime. It seems like that.
Okay, but I think that obviously if we're going to make conclusions about this, we have to take a broad view of everything and see how it all fits together. But yes, Thomas.
This is not an answer to any of the questions, but more so of a comment that in the Vedic system, the whole tradition and custom was to follow authorities. And in this case, everyone would follow the authorities of the wise persons, the brahmanas, the sages, and they were so submissive to those authorities that they would heed to their advice. So, like when a child is born, for example, a brahman would come, or an astrologer or a sage would come to bless. And whatever they suggest about the future of this child, generally in the Vedic custom, one follows that. And this is in one way that we find that these things happen, like when with Duryodhana, for example, this I think was who, Sage Durvasa, I believe, who came and suggested. So, because they're wise, and in Vedic custom, everyone, even the kings, were very submissive to authorities of the higher order. And just like in the case of this pastime here with Rukmini, that her brother, the elder brother, who also stands as a representative of the father, he decides it wasn't a question of Rukmini having any authority per se to say, well, okay, no, I don't want to marry this person. That he decides, well, he's going to get her married to such. And that became like an authority. So the whole Vedic culture is like one of submissiveness. And from that, to some extent, we can understand how all these situations come about, that some higher authority suggested, well, this child should be treated in this way for the well-being of society, for the well-being of the future of the nation, and thus those advices are being heeded too.
I think that's a very good point that you make, because it takes away the idea of neglect, like nothing was done. Well, what was done in such a society was authorities were consulted and their advice was taken, and so on. Thank you.
Actually, I thought I would provide a counterpoint to that.
Okay.
So yes, authority and submissive to authority, but then we have many examples in the Vaishnava tradition where authority was neglected when like Hiranyakashipu and his son, Prahlad Maharaj, or Shukracharya, the guru, his instructions were rejected by Bali Maharaj. So it is not that it was blind submission, but rather, from the point of view of dharma, people were consulted. So now in this case, it is not that there was, I don't know if there is a Vedic injunction out there that you have to abandon a child if it has a defect, but it also depends on the consciousness of the parents themselves. So the parents have a son like Shishupal, so what is their consciousness? And the parents had a son like Jarasandha, what is the parents' consciousness? And so, it is, I feel that we shouldn't really extrapolate too much based on these local situations to the entire Vedic system of how things were being done.
You guys can debate, outside. If there's anybody else that has any other points.
Okay, I'll just make this last comment. There is a narrow, or I would say a gulf of difference between what I said and the way you countered. That I mentioned that for the benefit of the generation in the future. So with that in mind, for benefit, that's very important in my statement, that they consider the situation like with Bali Maharaj, for example. Lord Bali Maharaj considered the future, that, okay, his guru was giving bad advice, so he shouldn't take that because it would hamper the future of the Vedic culture. Just one example, so that should be taken into consideration. Thank you very much.
Anybody else want to weigh in on that one? Okay, then we'll end there. Grantara Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.